me ask you something, Jonathan. Have you ever been to any Diddy parties or anything like that?
No, I haven't.
Were you ever invited or anything like that?
I was invited during the pandemic.
Okay.
But what we know as a Diddy party now isn't the same. Like when I was asked to come to one of his parties, I had no idea that it was going to be like a freak off or, anything else. And honestly, like I regret not going because I would have liked to seen how crazy it would have, like, would he have been out front? Like, how did he move? Did he send everybody home? And when you're going home, blah, 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 blah. Like that's when it was about to start off. But when I was working, this is another thing. People can check me and fact check. I was working with the Notorious Big Camp, right? And I did a deal with Biggie's estate. Biggie was best friends with who? Jay-Z, and he was signed to Diddy. And a lot of people say, "Oh, Biggie was about to leave Bad Boy." No, he wasn't. They're confusing that with Tupac. Biggie says in the song "Hypnotize," that was released a week before he died. Close like Starsky and Hutch. Me and Puff, close like Starsky and Hutch. Right? They were best friends. Like so they were always together. So Jay-Z being close to Biggie and Diddy. So when I'm working with the Biggie, I'm sorry. So when I work with the Biggie estate and the Biggie camp, of course, they're close to Jay-Z and Diddy. So when I was out there working with them, signed with them with CJ Wallace, Biggie's son, and we went viral on that type of stuff. I met like Willie Mack. I met like King Combs, Christian Combs, because they were all friends and they were all family. Diddy and CJ were super close. So of course, and we were doing a Biggie project. So of course I dealt with Puff. So of course I know what I'm talking about. Like once again, all this can be fact checked. Because I hear those stuff about like, Jaguar Wright is just, out here saying, a bunch of BS. And, I've heard that I've got it. It's like, no, you can fact check that. It's easy. It's easy to find. And ask them. Ask the Notorious Big Estate if they invite me to a Diddy party.
So can I ask you, when you see someone says like a Ray J, right, is crazy, if they bring up your name, oh, what he's talking about is just crazy. What do you say to those who just try to write that off as crazy because it sounds so, I guess you could say, unbelievable?
So prove it. So prove it that she's crazy. Prove it that she's not telling the truth. Because a lot of people are listening and paying attention to her.
Right. It seems as if they say someone needs to produce receipts. Sometimes it's hard to produce a receipt of something that you visually saw with your own eyes. You didn't take a picture. You didn't write it down. Someone just telling you what they recall from just seeing it or a phone call they got. We live in a world back then. There was no receipts back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was before social media or like text messaging was very heavy. And you didn't keep the text messages back then. There was no cloud storage to where I could have a receipt from 20 years ago. It's just basically going off memory. Like I'm sure everything that you're saying is going off of your memory of what happened versus, oh, I went home and I took a picture or I wrote this down in an email and sent it to myself so I could bring it up 20 years later. What do you say to that as far as the time gap in which these things occurred versus retelling your story now?
I mean, listen, I agree with what you're saying, but there's also the other side of it too. Is we also have to protect some of the people around us that don't want to be out there, that don't want to be known. Like, for example, there's a woman who, she has 4 kids and she's in New York and she's like going to like Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and doing stuff for the kids. She doesn't want other parents to know about her past. And, so when we say some things, we have to hold some stuff back to protect other people that were around that don't want to be associated by that. You understand what I'm saying? So I know that she has that as well.
That's very true. And I think some people forget that sometimes other people are affected by stories that are being told where they have children and they you have to look into all of that and the ramifications of it.
Correct.
Real life. If that shit ain't real life, that shit ain't acting.